Vice Chair Webb.
Present.
Authority Member Amon.
Present.
Authority Member Buchanan. Authority Member Fullenwider.
Here.
And Authority Member Ravindran.
Present.
And you will move up without Buchanan here.
Okay. Do you want me to actually take his seat? Checking.
Only if you want to.
Then the board won't match.
If you would all rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Are there any alterations from the board? Any other members? Seeing none, it's approved. Item number 4 is minutes to be approved. 4A is the certification of the February 12th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. we have any alterations, changes, or a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes.
A second?
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Seeing none. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 5 is public comment. If you would wish to address the authority under public comments, please sign in on the public speaker form before the call to order of this meeting. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience not here to speak on an item that is on our agenda? Something different? Seeing none, we'll move on to general business. Item number 6A is a preliminary hearing for South Suburban Parks and Recreation District, doing business as Littleton Golf and Tennis Club, 5800 South Federal Boulevard, Littleton, Colorado. For this preliminary hearing, it looks like we have a stipulation agreement in order, along with our LPD report as attachments. City Prosecutor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Licensee and the city has come to an agreement. The licensee has agreed to a 10-day suspension of licensee's liquor license with 5 days of actual suspension and 5 days held in abeyance for 1 year from the date of the final order. The licensee has also opted to pay a fine in lieu of the actual suspension. I did speak with Mr. Hanna before we began tonight because there is a small error in number C regarding the period of proposed suspension. It's 3 days. I listed it as 3 days. It should be 5 days. So I would be amending it to be March 24th, 2020 through March 28th, 2020, and that would be a Tuesday through Saturday inclusive.
Okay. Is the licensee here to make a statement on the stipulation?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Rob Hanna, the Executive Director at South Suburban Parks and Recreation, 6631 South University, Centennial, Colorado. We are in agreement with the stipulation to pay a fine in lieu of abatements.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like this was a result of a compliance check with our LPD department. The report stated some material facts that were a little bit concerning about how the service of alcohol was conducted on the premises. Have there been remediations, actions taken on your part, proactive, to ensure proper service of alcohol?
As per our policy, that employee was terminated immediately, long-term employee, 6+ years. We actually have every server sign a document that says if they do not check IDs, that's immediate termination of their employee agreement with the district. We do have a no stance policy of if it happens, you're gone, and we did implement that in this situation, in addition to our ongoing training and our own review of our policy via video cameras that we do check periodically to make sure that they are checking IDs. This was just an unfortunate situation where it did not happen, and again, per policy, that employee is no longer an employee at South Suburban.
You excuse me. You mentioned training. What does training look like on a regular basis? You said regular training.
So we have regular trainings on a number of different issues, and this is brought up at our trainings, as well as our onboarding with all servers, that they check all IDs. We even purchased a couple of years ago a swiping machine that actually you swipe it. You can actually program it for either tobacco or alcohol, so you don't even have to read it, because my eyes are getting bad as I get older, and sometimes those are hard to read. So we did implement that a couple of years ago at the facility as well too. So we do training on how to use that mobile device as well too. So those are basically the steps that we take. We include that again on all the trainings that we do on a number of different things.
And you called this an unfortunate incident, so does that mean you're not changing the way you're doing it going out, or are there any changes that you've implemented since this?
The policy is you check everybody and that there's a no tolerance if you don't. So we have not changed.
No,
our
I
policy.
understand that, but like the training, the reminders, whatever that you're doing, have you made any changes in how you do that based on this unfortunate episode or incident?
Just reminders, again, at every time we meet as a staff, it's a reminder that this is our policy and that you're to check everybody's ID, again, no matter what the age.
Madam City Attorney, was there any discussion at the time of the stipulation discussion about renewed training for South Suburban employees?
No, I didn't speak to anybody about training.
Right. For members of the board, full disclosure, I have represented South Suburban in the past. I currently represent their law firm, so you need to know that. However, I have 3 concerns with this stipulation. The first is that South Suburban is a public agency. It's a governmental entity. The taxpayers support it along with their revenues. So I think we should hold them to a higher standard. The second is that South Suburban has a number of liquor licenses, not only ours, but 2 in the city of Centennial, 1 at the Family Fun and 1 at the golf course, and 1 in the city of Lone Tree. So they are in the category of a broad server, just like if we were to license King Soopers or Chili's, they should know what the standards are. Thirdly, they employ a lot of seasonal employees. And the seasonal employees, unless they're reminded of what the policy is, this could happen again. I'm going to make a motion that we require South Suburban to do 2 renewed trainings by April 30th for their current employees and by June 15th for their temporary employees, and they hire 300 or so during the summer for beer cart drivers, servers, and bartenders, so that we are assured that some type of tips training is applied uniformly across the South Suburban system. And I will make that informal motion once the discussion is done.
Madam Attorney, City Attorney, may I ask a question? You're both city attorneys. I'll take the one with the bun in the oven. But my question is regarding how the stipulation of 5 days in abeyance and the 5-day fine. Were there other factors that came into consideration when you made that stipulation?
Well, they hadn't had a violation in a very long time. I believe that it was 2011 was the last time that they had had a violation, which has been 9 years.
Yeah.
So that's a considerable period of time. I did know that the employee was terminated because she came to court on a case that I dealt with in the criminal system. And she actually did get training, a TIPS class, as a part of her agreement. So mainly I looked at the fact that they had not had a violation in a very long time and that they were definitely taking steps to ensure that their employees were trained properly, and that they unfortunately terminated this employee who had been with their company for a very, very long time. So I did feel that there was adequate attention put to ensure that this wasn't going to happen again. And again, it hadn't happened in 9 years.
Right. I guess I'm asking, and I apologize, in consideration of the other 2 stipulations that we have on our agenda for today, the other 2, I believe, only had 3 days. And so
Yes, and that's because that was their first issue, I would say, with the license authority.
But this is the second issue,
Yes.
irrespective of the amount of time.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Have you had any liquor violations in the other cities that South Suburban operates?
In any other cities, yes, we've had a violation in Lone Tree at the Golf and Hotel.
Okay.
Again, that employee was terminated as well, too.
And when was that?
18 months ago, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Just a procedure question, I think, is for our city attorney. The stipulation before us is an agreement between the prosecutor and the licensee. We can either accept that we can ask if they would be willing to make modifications to that stipulation agreement, but if they both say no, there's no further action we can take at this stage. We would have to reject the stipulation and bring them back for show cause hearing, go through the motions, find guilty, and then assess whatever penalty we would devise at that point.
Essentially correct. To be more technical, you guys can look at the stipulation and make what's called a counter offer. You can propose perhaps what Vice Chair Webb is stating related to specific training you would want by any given date, and that can be presented to the parties here. And if it's accepted, then you can make a motion asking to accept that stipulation with your modifications. If it is not correct, it would just proceed to the show cause hearing next month as we have scheduled.
Well, the city certainly doesn't object to additional training. How do you feel about that, Mr.
Oh,
Hanna?
absolutely not. As a matter of fact, we did have at least 2 employees that went through the advanced TIPS training to where they are now certified trainers to do the TIPS training in-house as well, too. So we have that capability as well to do in-house training. We went and had our, again, I think it was 2 managers that are certified to do the training themselves. So, so we have that capacity and we can do that immediately.
So you're going to add 2 trainings by April 30th. Is that correct?
Yes, upon information and belief and acquiescence by the licensee, I would make the motion that we modify the stipulation to require the licensee to provide TIPS training to their current employees by April 30th and to summer employees by June 15th of this year, 2020. And that they report back to the city attorney's office that the training has been completed to assure that South Suburban is in compliance with the same rules that we apply to other licensees governed by the authority.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Just a question. Do we still have to identify calculating the fine in lieu of suspension and the date to date? On the record, do we have to give the rest? Pete mentioned, modify the stipulation, but we haven't actually said it on the record. I don't know if we have to do that.
You mean making the actual motion to approve the stipulation?
Yes, with the modification proposed by
I think you can do it all in one motion, and you can kind of read the suggested language if that's what the board wants to do, moving to approve the stipulation agreement in order with that same language that's listed there, with the amendment of the additional
And I would
modification.
suggest keeping it clean, and we've got a motion for the amendment right now.
and then do the motion.
And then when we go to later, if this motion is seconded and approved and accepted by the parties,
Then do the,
then do the regular motion as written, saying stipulation as amended.
okay.
And you can do it that way as well, yes.
So we have a motion to require training as a counter offer to the stipulation. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second.
We have a second. We'll vote on the motion to require training for current employees by April 30th, another training for the new summer employees by June 15th. We will vote to offer that amendment to the stipulation, and after, if it passes, then we will ask if that's accepted.
And I show 5 in favor. The motion to amend carries unanimously.
All right, so is that provision for training accepted by the licensee?
Yes, sir.
Is that accepted by the prosecutor?
Yes, it is.
All right, we have an amended stipulation in front of us. Is there any other questions for the licensee at this time? Seeing none.
Can I just ask one thing? Did you accept my amendment of the fine in lieu, the days being extended from March 26th to 28th to March 24th through the 28th? It should be 5 days instead of 3. And so I spoke with the licensee prior to us going on the record tonight, and he agreed that, yes, it should be 5 days, and we discussed which days of the week would be preferable, and we agreed on March 24th through the 28th. So I want to make sure that that amendment was also added.
Okay. Is that a typo, or is that something we should vote on?
I think because we've put it on the record that way, when and if you make a motion for this amended stipulation, in the language we suggest on this motion, it does give you dates to enter there, and so I would just suggest that's where you would read the March 24th, 2020 through March 28th, 2020. And I think that should cover it.
All right, I'll insert that. I move to approve the stipulation, agreement, and order between the city prosecutor and the licensee. In Section 5C of the stipulation, the period of proposed suspension for purposes of calculating the fine in lieu of suspension shall be March 24th through March 28th, 2020. The show cause hearing date originally scheduled for April 8th, 2020 is hereby vacated.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second to accept the stipulation, vacate the show cause hearing, and set the dates for suspension from March 24th through March 28th. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will vote.
5 in favor, the motion to accept the amended stipulation carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Moving on now, we are still in general business. We are moving to 6B, a preliminary hearing for DAB of Littleton, Colorado, LLC, doing business as Staybridge Suites, 8211 South Park Circle, Littleton, Colorado. Here again, we have a stipulation agreement in order and an LPD report for this item, and the stage is yours, City Prosecutor.
So we also came to an agreement, the licensee and the city prosecutor, and the agreement that we came to was a 10-day suspension of licensee's liquor license with 3 days of actual suspension and 7 days held in abeyance for a period of 1 year from the date of the final order. They chose to do an actual suspension instead of a fine in lieu. And that would be March 26th, 2020 through March 28th, 2020. That is a Thursday through Saturday inclusive. And I believe that the licensee is prepared to answer any questions you have regarding any remediation that they've taken as a result of this.
So I would ask, what training or other changes have you made since this event has occurred?
This being the first time it's ever happened in my 28 years in hospitality and had bars and restaurants, took this very seriously. Immediately following the incident, everybody went through the Serve Safe alcohol training, and that'll be in place for every new hire that comes on board after that is doing that.
I'm sorry, sir, for the record, could you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm Brad Yonner, the general manager at the Staybridge Suites, 8211 South Park Circle, Littleton, Colorado.
Thank you.
And you said this is when they come on board, and then you're also doing regular training around this?
There's monthly reminders with our monthly front desk meetings, but every new hire will go through the actual Serve Safe alcohol training program, and they did it immediately following this incident.
I guess I'm not entirely aware of your setup, but is the front desk where guests are checked into the hotel, and then those same employees are also managing the convenience store attached?
Correct.
So anyone working the front desk would be selling potentially alcohol?
Yes, and they've all gone through the training.
And the ages of those persons selling alcohol at that front desk, you then only employ persons of age that can sell alcohol for that front desk position?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you use other staff to ever cover the front desk, or there's always a person there, and if it's not?
It's just the front desk on the front desk.
Front desk or a manager, probably?
Correct.
Are there any other questions from the authority for the licensee? Okay, I'll go ahead and give a shot at this motion. I move to approve the stipulation agreement in order between the city prosecutor and the licensee. In Section 5A of the stipulation, the period of proposed suspension shall be Thursday, March 26th through Saturday, March 28th inclusive. The show cause hearing date, originally scheduled for April 8th, 2020, is hereby vacated. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion or the issue in front of us? Seeing none, we'll vote.
Five in favor, the motion to accept the stipulation carries unanimously.
Thank you. All right, and we are still in item 6, general business. We are moving on to 6C, preliminary hearing for JP Nori Sushi and Asian Cuisine Incorporated, doing business as JP Nori Sushi and Asian Cuisine, 5302 South Federal Circle, Unit B, Littleton, Colorado. Again, we have a stipulation agreement in order on this one, LPD report 2019-005-830. City prosecutor?
Yes, the licensee and the city came to a stipulation, which was a 10-day suspension of licensee's liquor license with 3 days of actual suspension and 7 days held in abeyance for 1 year from the date of the final order. And the licensee opted to pay a fine in lieu of the actual suspension, which would be, the period of time would be March 26th, 2020 through March 28th, 2020, Thursday through Saturday inclusive.
This is, I guess, my question for the evening. Talk about training or other things that you've done since this event to remind staff of the legal requirements.
Before you do that, could you identify yourself for the record?
So my name is Victor Lee Zhu. I'm the owner and manager of JP Nori Sushi and Asian Cuisine. So since the incidents, we have done retraining, and then the server who had the violation, she did tips training. And then since then, we have reminded all servers and anyone who serves alcohol to check IDs and all of the rules as well. And then the POS system, the stickers all over the place reminding them to check IDs, don't overserve. If they have any questions or any problems, to come find a manager if they don't know what to do. But she was like relatively new to the restaurant when she was working for us, but she had experience before, and then since the incident, she has always checked IDs since then now. And yeah, I think she learned her lesson, so even if she doesn't work for us, she will always check IDs no matter where she works, and then we've been reminding employees and everybody to check IDs and follow the rules and everything.
Did you say she still works for you?
She does.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, yeah, now she checks everyone's ID since the incidents. She has been checking before. I'm not sure why that day she didn't check, but it was just misfortune that she didn't check that day, but usually she checked ID normally. But now for sure she checks everyone's ID when there's alcohol served.
So prior to this incident, what kind of training was there for staff who you hired to serve in your restaurant?
And if you can, please speak into the microphone.
Oh, okay. So I have the TIPS certified training already, and then we went through the stuff that I was taught in that book that they gave us. But a lot of the servers who worked there already had like experience with alcohol, but we just remind them like the rules. Check ID. If you're not sure, check ID. How to tell is it fake or real. Not to overserve. So it's pretty much what that TIPS certified. We went through some of the stuff, what's the rules and stuff for that, and then when we were starting to prepare for the new like digital ID that people said that you can use now, that was the next thing that we're about to train for too as well.
Are you accepting the digital ID for?
Not at the moment. We're still learning how that works because, yeah, right now we're still figuring out how that works. exactly, but at the current moment, we're not accepting any pictures or digital ID at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's acceptable ID format for alcohol service yet. I'm not sure if, City Attorney, because I know it's used maybe to prove your identification if someone asks, but it's not, it's still borderline. So I would continue to learn more about that before proceeding forward, and I'll look that up too.
I would assume, since we're the licensing, Littleton is offering the license, we would send guidance to our licensees about digital format. I know it's Department of Revenue, obviously, that's doing this with the state, so very familiar with that, but obviously it's our liquor license under the rules of the state government, so.
Correct. It's a city license as well as there's a license through the state. It would be my assumption, and I can't tell you for sure this is the case, that would go out to anyone with a license so they would know of any change in the law.
Right.
It's not my belief that that is currently the status.
Okay. Yeah.
A little derailed, but any other questions for our licensee? Questions about the situation before us? If there aren't any discussion points, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the stipulation agreement and order between the city prosecutor and the licensee in Section 5C of the stipulation. The period of proposed suspension for purposes of calculating the fine in lieu of suspension shall be March 26th through 28th,
28th.
2020, inclusive. The show cause date, hearing date originally scheduled for April 8th, 2020, is hereby vacated.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second. Any discussion on the motion? Facts of the case, anything related to that? Seeing none, we will vote.
5 in favor, the motion to approve the stipulation carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, we are now done with general business and moving on to reports. City clerk for the day. Is there any reports from
Not for
Clerk's
tonight's
office.
meeting, no.
Any notes from other authority members? Why do I feel like I had some note, like some restaurant closed, but,
You could congratulate Michael and I on being reappointed.
oh yes, we will
Congratulations.
congratulate Mike Amon and Pete Webb on their new appointment. They will be on with us for the next 3 years, leading into 2023. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And that will end our hearing. We are adjourned.
Thank you.